welcome to Commander Central, episode 152. And today, we're going to be taking a look at listener Connor Hernitz's Marrow-Gnawer Rat Tribal deck. I'm Dana.
And I'm Max.
Let's talk rats, Max. Well, I guess first we can talk about anything else we want to talk about. What do we want to talk about since we're Chris free this week? Let's talk about Chris.
No, Chris is bigger than me. I don't want to do
That's true.
that.
That's a fair point. Chris is out again. We recorded this show at the same time we recorded Monday's show.
Right.
So he was tied up today and unable to make it. So it is just Max and I again today, but we'll find a way to power on through.
We'll try.
We will try. So anything exciting really happening in the world of Magic? We could discuss this, actually. We've kind of talked about our plans for, because the schedule was released for next year's Magic Fests.
Yes.
And of course, nothing is set in stone, but we've had this conversation already, so we can just share what our thoughts are about about Magic Fest we're thinking about going to. So the first one we discussed is Austin is in January.
It's the 10th of January, yeah.
We, of course, don't know for sure, but we think we may try to make Austin.
We get to go hang out with the brothers, not the Commander Social
the
crew.
Commander Social boys. I've actually made that same mistake just this week. We might go down to Austin, hang out with those guys, and go to that Magic Fest.
Yes.
We would like to go to Seattle, which is in the summer, I believe.
The first weekend of June.
Okay.
I'll go see your other show.
There we go. Yes, there we go. And Matt Morgan's planning on going to that one, too, where he's going to try to, so we'll try to have both shows there.
Awesome.
There's a couple of local ones. There's a Milwaukee and Minneapolis.
Milwaukee is in the end of October, so about this time next year.
Yep.
And Minneapolis is in the middle, right after the 4th of July.
Okay. So last year we only went for the day because it was so close to Vegas.
It was the weekend before you and I left for Vegas because we took our vacation.
Yes. Whereas this year, Vegas is actually a week later even.
Well, it's like a month and a half later than Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah, a week later than it was, though, this year.
Right.
It's at the very end of the month. So we'll definitely do Vegas again, I'm sure, but we'll probably try to actually go to Minneapolis for more than just the afternoon.
Weekend. Yep. And then SCGCon is in the right after Seattle.
Yes, and we're going to try to go to SCGCon, I think, definitely.
Yeah, because we've missed the last two. We aren't doing the winter one this year.
Yeah, so
it's supposed to be a really cool event.
We are going to have a busy 2020, it looks like.
And I am trying to pull for the Anaheim Magic Fest in November.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mainly because hockey season, so if I scrub out of Commander, I can go watch the Ducks play if they're at home.
All right, I like that.
And we know some people in Anaheim as well.
Yeah, very cool. So that's our rough plan. We will, of course, finalize that as we get a little bit closer. But
I'm a fan that really the only two back-to-backs we have tentatively right now are Seattle and SCGCon.
Yes.
Because this year we had a bunch of, it felt like we were on the road from Kansas City through through like the end of July.
Yeah, it was busy.
Between
it'll be nice to have them spaced out a little bit
because
it'll be nice to have them spaced out a little bit, especially. So as January rolls around, we'll firm up our exact plans for Austin, but we're hoping to try to make that one to start off the year.
Yes.
All right. I think that's about it. We don't have much in the way of news to talk about.
No.
If you would like us to do a Decks You Play segment on one of your decks, how would you do that, Max?
Head over to patreon.com/CMDR Central, and if you are so inclined to support us financially, check out our rewards tiers. The Decks You Play is in there, along with being able to come on the show, discuss something you want to discuss, discuss something we're going to discuss, or just as simple as joining our chat room via Slack.
All would be very much appreciated.
Yes.
You can also go to teespring.com and get a T-shirt.
Yes, teespring.com, and go search CMDR Central. We just released the new comfort tees with all the bright, shiny colors that Chris wanted.
Yeah, he wanted a pink shirt and was mad he couldn't get one.
There's not a pink shirt, but there are more than gray, black, and blue, I think is what the original three were.
How's the contest going?
Chris may be winning right now.
Oh, really?
By one.
Oh, all right.
Oh, and we have hoodies.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's right.
And those will count towards the contest as well.
Okay, very cool. So let's talk some Marrow-Gnawer. Let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
You want to read Marrow-Gnawer to us here, Max?
Yeah, Marrow-Gnawer is 3 black for a legendary creature, rat rogue. Oh, maybe we're going rogue tribal.
We're not.
Oh.
Spoiler alert.
Dang. Okay, it has base power 2. It's a 2/3. It has all rats have fear. Fear's a lot of fun. And then it has tap, sacrifice a rat, put X 1/1 black rat creature tokens into play, where X is the number of rats you control.
So fear creature can only be blocked by black and or artifact creatures.
Yes.
Is fear. So we got some notes here from Connor. He says his meta ranges from precons to fine-tune CEDH decks, but the majority of decks fall into the 75% to 85% range. The goal of the deck is to pump out rats to power up rat colonies and go for the kill. The biggest struggle he finds is running out of gas while he's still trying to establish a board presence and ending up stuck with an empty hand and 3 to 4 creatures in play. He'd like to keep individual card prices to around $20.
Perfect.
That's very, very easy to do. So, mono black deck, that makes the mana base pretty easy. The average CMC here is 3.16. In part, that's because there's a lot of rat colonies in here. That helps drive that number down. Let's start with the land base because it's mono black and there's not a whole ton to talk about here. We've got 36 lands. There's a Barren Moor, a Bojuka Bog, a Cabal Stronghold, a Field of Ruin, a Leech-Ridden Swamp, a Path of Ancestry, a Polluted Mire, 28 swamps, and a West Vale Abbey.
Pretty solid mono black land base right there.
Yeah, I mean the dream here is being able to have a Cabal Coffers as well, and maybe even an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth just to make it easier to power that Cabal Coffers. But I don't know if either of those are particularly necessary. Cabal Stronghold and mono black does a pretty good Cabal Coffers impersonation. Long term, I would say it's out of his budget right now. Save your, nickels and dimes, and eventually I would say I would get a Cabal Coffers for this deck.
Yeah.
But the land base as it stands right now is pretty decent. I don't love the cycling lands. I am not a fan of Barren Moor and is it Polluted Mire the other one?
Correct.
They come into play tapped. I think the ability to pitch them to draw a card is useful, but in a deck that doesn't have extra synergy with that pitch, I don't want the tempo hit.
Yeah.
Certainly on occasion, you're going to just make it as your turn 1 play and there's not much downside, whatever. But those feel bad to draw on turn 4 when you're not going to pitch them. And does that offset the times when you draw it in turn 10 and it just turns into another card for 1 black mana? Maybe, but I don't like them myself.
So when I play monocolor decks, I run them in like mono red or mono white. But black, you have so much good draw.
Yeah.
And blue, you have so much good draw. And even green, I mean, you have Harmonize. Maybe occasionally you run them in green, but there's other stuff in green that lets you draw cards these days. So I agree with you, Dana. I think you could easily cut those for some noteworthy suggestions.
Okay. What suggestions do you have there?
My first one being Mutavault.
Oh, yeah.
Because it can, so it comes in untapped, It can create a colorless, but then you can pay a colorless to make it a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn. So now it's a rat.
I mean, effectively, it could very well turn into a ginormous
rat,
as well as buffing the rest of your rats.
Or make a bunch of rats.
Yep.
Sack that Mutavault if you don't need it anymore.
Right, yeah. No, that's a really good call in this deck.
The other 2 suggestions I would have are from Throne of Eldraine. So we have Castle Locthwain.
Yep.
So it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp. Well, that's not going to be a problem
control
here,
a swamp, yeah.
Unlike those cycling lands.
Yep.
It can tap to add black, but then 1 black to draw a card, and then lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. If he's having fuel issues keeping his hand full, you're not going to be losing a lot of life with this activation for 3 mana.
And how many times have you lost 4 life to draw a card off Sylvan Library? A lot of times.
Every time unless I'm at 4 or less.
Right, yeah. Yeah, really, yes. So, like, I get how when you look at that card, you're like, yeah, but I could, that could be hitting me for 3 or 4 or 5 life per. Well, that's not that bad if you need a card.
I mean, yeah, or then just don't do it.
Right, yes, for sure.
The other one being Witch's Cottage. It is a swamp.
Yep.
And then it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other swamps, which maybe falls more into the cycling land area. It might probably come into tap a little more often than not. But the fact that if it enters the battlefield untapped, you can put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. You need that rat back. You need any of the other utility creatures in this deck back. That's a way to recur stuff.
I think being able to set up that next draw to get one of those, to know you get that creature back, is more useful than being able to pitch a land to draw a card.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a more useful effect than a cycling land in a deck that isn't doing like Life from the Loam or isn't Get Drug Monster where you're getting a bonus from that. I think the cycling lands need to have some added synergy, and there isn't added synergy here.
Right. There's no Caged Sun, anything like
Yep.
that.
I would try to find room for Nykthos in this deck. It's a mono black deck. There's 30 plus creatures here that all have at least one black pip. I'm guessing making mana isn't a problem in this deck, but like there's going to be times. One of the things we're going to suggest is more draw here along the way, and there's going to be times when you want to tap that Nykthos for 11 is going to set up a monster turn.
Right. I agree. Nykthos is definitely should be in this deck, but we need to fix the draw issues first.
Yep, and we will. I think that's the main thing we're going to look at here after we leave lands. Is there anything else here, Max, in particular for the lands that you don't love?
Within the budget restrictions, I have no other suggestions.
What are your thoughts on Leech-Ridden Swamp? It does count as a swamp. It always comes into play tapped, and you can spend one. Each opponent loses a life, and you can only do that if you control 2 or more black permanents.
I wish it was more life, or at least you gained a life.
Sure.
So there's some benefit to you. In the games we play at our shop, or the games I've played out in the wild at GPs, there's very few situations where someone's at 1 where this would come in handy.
Yes.
They're more worried about getting hit with a bunch of rats versus, oh, you can just ping me for 1.
Yeah, I think there's decks where like the loss of life allows you to do a thing, but that really isn't the case here for the most part.
Yeah.
This is probably where I would put Nykthos.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's other things like I think there's one more land removal land, like a
Ghost Quarter, a
Tectonic Edge or something, I think, is going to win you way more games, or at least keep you from losing way more games than a Leech-Ridden Swamp. So, other than that, that's about what I will be looking at here as well, and there's nothing else budgetarily that I would change.
Right.
So let's jump over to sorceries, because one of the things we're talking about is draw, and this might be where we would put it. Read the sorceries to us. There's 11 of them here.
Yeah, so we have Ambition's Cost, 4 mana, draw 3, lose 3. Command the Dreadhorde, that's a lot of text, we'll come back to that later. Crux of Fate, destroy all dragons or all non-dragons. Diabolical Tutor, extinguish all hope. Kindred Dominance, languish, Plague of Vermin, read the bones, scheming symmetry, and victimize.
Okay. So let's do the draw last here.
Okay.
There's a couple of board wipes. There's Crux of Fate. There's Extinguish All Hope. And there's Kindred Dominance. And I guess Languish, kind of. All creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn.
Yeah.
Languish, I am unsure about. Rat Colony, rats get +1/+0. And I think once upon a time, if this would have been like it's not pack rat. What was
Relentless Rats?
Relentless Rats that got +1/+1. There were probably times when that Languish would not kill your rats.
Yeah.
But they're going to kill your rat colony. I think I would rather have Mutilate in that slot.
I was going to say the exact same thing. If we want to kill everything, let's kill everything with Mutilate.
Yes. And we I guess this requires a change to the land base, but Dead of Winter that was in Modern Horizons would require you to swap out those 28 swamps for 28 snow-covered swamps. But snow-covered swamps, because we just got them in Modern Horizons,
they're cheap.
They're relatively cheap. You could make that change and then run Dead of Winter as a board wipe. I would be very tempted to swap out Extinguish All Hope, which is just destroy all non-enchantment creatures. And it's in here, I'm guessing, as just a budget version of Damnation.
Yeah.
I would replace Extinguish All Hope and Languish with Mutilate and Dead of Winter that are going to kill more things probably more often and are cheaper to cast and are going to get around Indestructible as well.
Okay. My only other suggestion would be Decree of Pain.
Decree is super greedy.
But it lets them draw a bunch of cards.
Draws a ton of cards, and it's good to be greedy sometimes.
You know it.
So for draw, well, let's actually just go more. There's Plague of Vermin.
Yeah, I've never seen this card before.
Starting with you, each player may pay any amount of life. Repeat this process until no one pays life. Each player puts a 1/1 black rat creature token into play for each 1 life he or she paid this way. I mean, you're going to get so much more advantage than anybody else for paying the life there. So this is just a great deck to be running that card for sure. Scheming Symmetry, is a top of library tutor that hits one other person. There's a Diabolic tutor in here as a tutor effect as well. And Victimize lets you put choose two creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature, and if you do, return the 2 cards to the battlefield. So it's a way to bring stuff back from your graveyard to play.
Same with Command the Dreadhorde.
Anything on those you would change or you want to talk about?
I mean, we need a way to recur all these rat colonies, so I like them. I think my biggest issue with these is the fact that we don't really have haste in this deck yet.
Yes.
And so if you're going to do something like Command the Dreadhorde and bring 5 or 8 rat colonies back for 16 life, and then they sit there.
Right.
What happens if the next player does a board wipe? You just lost all that life, spent 6 mana, and didn't get to do anything.
Right.
So when we get to the artifact sections, maybe we have some suggestions for the haste, but I like all this recursion. Like you said earlier, I don't think there's a mana making issue in this deck, and adding that Nykthos will just help make these cast be easier.
So the 2 tutors in here are Scheming Symmetry and Diabolic Tutor. I'm guessing those are both chosen because of the cost on Demonic Tutor, which is $30-ish.
$25 to $30.
And Vampiric Tutor, which is $50 to $60?
$60 to $70.
Ugh. All right. Yeah, so those are budget replacements. The one thing I would maybe suggest over Diabolic Tutor is Dark Petition. That was in Origins. It's 5 mana instead of 4. Tutors up a card, but if you have Spell Mastery, so if there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, you add 3 to your mana pool, so basically it becomes a Demonic Tutor. I think the once in a while when it's going to cost you 1 more mana, and in my experience, it's pretty often only once in a while. Like most of the time, you do have Spell Mastery. Occasionally, it costs you 1 more, but really, really often, it essentially winds up costing you 2 less.
Yeah,
I think that's probably worth a trade-off for Diabolic Tutor. So let's look at the draw he has here, because a lot of the black draw tends to be sorcery speed, and there's not a ton of it. There's Ambition's Cost. There is Read the Bones. In Victimize, bring stuff back from your graveyard, but that's really it.
Yeah, that is not enough, in my opinion.
So if I was building this deck from the ground up, I would throw my land base in, I'd throw a few rats in, I'd throw my board wipes in, and then from the just beginning, like the base draw package I would have in this deck would be Ambition's Cost and Ancient Craving, which are basically clones, 4 mana, draw 3 cards, lose 3 life. I would have the 3 smaller black draw spells, which are Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, and Read the Bones. He's got 1 of those in here. And I would probably be running Minion's Murmurs, which is a 4 mana draw card for each creature you control and lose a life. Particularly in this deck, it's going to be pretty often a 4 mana draw 6 or 7 sometimes. But if it's just a draw 3, that's still pretty decent for 4 mana because you're paying that for Ambition's Cost anyway.
Yeah.
So that would be like the base package I would start with for sorcery speed draw in black before I even then got into some of the enchantments to do it. I think he needs more draw here.
Yeah, I mean, even something like Damnable Pact is cheap. It's X black, target player draws X, loses X life.
Especially in mono black, especially in a deck with Cabal Stronghold and perhaps Nykthos, where there's time, the ability to just kill somebody by putting 17 mana into it is really, really useful. So it's a draw spell early, it's a kill spell late. I'd probably find a spot for that too. Mono black in a deck like this, it's kind of aggro and it's playing a lot of stuff. I would want at least 10 draw sources. Minimum.
And there are a few others in some other sections of the deck, but I don't think we're at 10.
No. So I would look to add quite a few there. I don't know if there's anything else. Like I think you want at least 3 board wipes. We mentioned a couple of things we could change here, but I think you do want to keep a couple. I think Plague of Vermin's great in this deck. 2 tutors is fine. Like I think he could drop to are there any silver bullets he's tutoring up with those tutors that just win the game?
No.
So it's good to have tutors to get answers, but I don't know if you necessarily need both, but you're not hurting to have them both either. How about instants? What do we have there, Max?
We have 7 instants. So we have Defile, Go for the Throat, Hero's Downfall, Malicious Affliction, Murder, Sudden Spoiling, and Wretched Confluence.
So these are mostly answers.
Yep, mostly kill spells.
Sudden Spoiling is great. The Wretched Confluence, I might as well read the 3 modes because it's a little bit more obscure than some of the confluences. It's 5 mana, instant speed, choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. Target player draws a card and loses a life, so there is a draw spell there. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. And return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
So a little recursion as well.
A little recursion, could be a draw spell, can be a kill spell.
Yep. I like it.
It's pretty good.
All the Wretcheds are pretty good for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the green one, but the other 4 are nice.
I think Defile's really solid in this deck.
Do you?
I think it's good enough. I think it's a 1 mana, and it's pretty often going to...
Do 4 -1/-1.
It's going to kill most of the things you want to kill for 1 mana.
And it is instant speed. I guess, I mean, it's like... We tell people to run Path and Sword, so I guess this is no different. It's just in mono black. And it doesn't... My worry would be what happens if you don't have enough.
Yes.
Like Swamps.
But I think for the most part, by the time you care about killing something, you are going to have enough.
Yeah.
Like it's, if you want to kill that Birds of Paradise on turn 1, it'll probably do it. If you want to kill, like things will get tricky maybe for Elish Norn if someone reanimates something that you only have 2 swamps in play, but that's tricky for most people most of the time. The one thing actually I think maybe is necessary here is murder. I think between Defile, Go for the Throat, Hero's Downfall, Malicious Affliction, and Wretched Confluence having the option to kill something, I don't know if you need 1 additional remove creature spell.
I think it needs to be a better one.
If you want to run one, I agree. I don't think murder's good enough. If you want to run one, it probably wouldn't be murder.
No. I definitely think something more like Vraska's Contempt, because it exiles.
Which is a big deal sometimes.
And gains you some life.
And it hits a Planeswalker.
Yes.
So you're playing 1 more mana for the exile option and the chance to hit a Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would either not run murder or I run something better. I think murder falls. It's not efficient enough to be worth it, like Go for the Throat, and it's not good enough to run like Vraska's Contempt. It's in the middle of the road there, and it's not what you want on either side. Any more instant things you want to talk about, Max?
I get that this deck is really revolving around having rats on the battlefield, but I also think maybe for draw you throw in stuff like Altar's Reap, or any of those sacrifice a creature, draw a card at instant speed. Sacrificing a rat to draw 2 more is probably better than that loss of power you're going to get on someone's end step.
Right.
Coastal Piracy, nope, that's the blue one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the black one that also lets you sack an artifact.
Costly Plunder.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah, Costly Plunder, I think, is actually definitely the one you would run just because there's times when you're like, I don't care if this, Heirloom Blade is still out or this Soul Foundry or whatever. I'm looking at the artifacts here. I was just going to mention this card as my last thing in the instance, but I realize right now looking at my notes, I have it put in the wrong spot. Patriarch's Bidding is close to the $20 budget per card, but it's a sorcery on the instant. I had it in the wrong location. So I will read it now, even though we're discussing instants. It would be a sorcery card I would recommend. It is 5 mana. Each player chooses a creature type, and each player returns all creature types of the type chosen from their graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a great card in a tribal deck like this in general. The odds of somebody else having a tribal deck or having enough of a certain tribe are pretty low. But in this deck especially, where your rats get +1/+1, even though you can't attack with them that turn, bringing them back just to buff the ones you can attack with is pretty good.
Yeah.
That is a sorcery I would run. I actually had it as an instant where it would be bonkers. But as a sorcery, that was one that would be great in this deck. And if I had to pick one card, I would be very tempted to put that one in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for instance you had down here, Max?
Nope, those are all the ones I had today.
Okay. So let's, where should we jump to next here? Do you have any preferences?
How about enchantments?
Okay, because there's only one. It'll be easy. Right now, Underworld Connections is the only enchantment. That's colorless black. Enchant land. Enchant land has tap, pay a life, draw a card. So it's a budget version of Phyrexian Arena in this deck.
Yes.
I guess the difference would be Phyrexian Arena doesn't do anything for a full turn.
This possibly could.
This possibly could because you can tap the land, assuming you have it free, that turn to draw your card.
Yep.
But
there's probably better suggestions out there.
And I think it's good to have some recurable draw and not just base it entirely on one and done. And Phyrexian Arena is always $10-ish. Maybe it'll drop to 7, maybe it goes to 12, but it's never a cheap card. This is 49 cents. So I do understand why it's here as a budget alternative.
Right.
But I don't think the ability to use it that turn offsets the fact that it costs you basically a mana every single turn because it has to be on a land, and it's really easy to 2-for-1.
Yes.
Enchantment removal doesn't exist in every color. Every color can run a strip mine.
Yes. Or a ghost quarter, or a field of
Or whatever. Right, yeah.
I think, if we're worried about budget here, greed is a card. Yeah, paying mana and losing a couple life to draw a card is a thing, but it isn't fun, but it's not attached to a land.
Yes.
And you can do it more than once.
The fact that if you need to dig down to find an answer, when you play Underworld Connections, it's going to cost you 3 mana, and then it'll cost you a 4th to use it that one turn. Greed costs you 4 immediately, and I guess you have to spend a 5th to draw the card.
Right.
But then you can spend a 6th and draw 2, and a 7th to draw 3, and an 8th. Like, if you need to dig down to find something, Greed will let you do that, and it goes straight to your hand.
Yes.
Necropotence is a great card. I always call it Necropotence and then get yelled at. Necropotence is a great card, but it doesn't get you the card till end of turn, and for some decks, you want them immediately, and it doesn't always match the power level. Some people just don't want that card in their meta, so I get that. I think Greed's probably better than Underworld Connections, though, and I would run it in that slot.
Yeah.
Any other big enchantments that jump at you that you think this deck kind of wants?
I mean, if we're worried, if we want some of our removal to be in the -1/-1 area, like we have in the sorceries and a couple of the instants, maybe something like Bad Moon, just to give all your black creatures that extra +1 on the defensive end, could help in the long run. It's a mini Anthem, essentially.
Makes it a little bit easier to power through and get that last little bit of damage through.
I mean, Vampiric Rites is a card as well. If you need draw, sacrifice a creature. Again, though, there's not a lot of recursion.
Yeah.
So depending on what you want to do, but if you're making a bunch of tokens off of your commander, you can get rid of some of them.
Yeah. I think because the commander does have a sack outlet built in, if you wanted to go the Grave Pact route or Dictative Erebos route, that is an option. I'm not sure if you necessarily do here, but it's something one could do. I also think Phyrexian Reclamation wouldn't be a bad add here for 1 mana. You can spend 2 and pay 2 life to bring a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So it winds up being basically 4 mana and 2 life to get a rat back and recast it. But there are times when that's completely worth it.
Oh, for sure.
It's an enchantment artifact, I guess, but in a similar vein, Whip of Erebos, being able to bring something back. The lifelink, though, I think this is a deck, particularly mono black, tends to pay a lot of life. I think clocking somebody with a lifelink to rats, in addition to the chance to bring them back, is pretty useful here, too.
For sure.
Where to next?
I guess let's go to artifacts, and we'll save the creatures for last.
Sure.
Well, there are 14 artifacts. There is an Altar of Dementia, Bantu's Monument, Coat of Arms, Door of Destinies, Elbrus the Binding Blade, Fire Shrieker, God Pharaoh's Gift, Heirloom Blade, Skull Clamp, Soul Ring, Soul Foundry, Stoneforge Masterwork, Sword of the Animist, and Vanquisher's Banner.
What do you think?
It's a lot of artifacts.
It is.
I like Elbrus. I've always wanted to run this card.
It's one of those cards that I think power-wise probably isn't good enough for most decks. There's a suggestion you can make that's better than it, probably, but I also like the card.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to occasionally have those kind of cards that are fun and interesting in a deck, even if they're maybe not as good as something you could run instead.
Yeah, and the fact that all your rats have fear, so you're probably going to connect to get the trigger to flip the blade into the Whitgear Unbound.
Yep.
Flying, Intimidate, Trample, and then whenever a player loses a game, put 13 +1/+1 counters on it.
Yeah.
That seems good.
Mm-hmm. All right, what else is there? Fire Shrieker's next. Another piece of equipment that gives your creature double strike.
I don't know how I feel about equipment in this deck, except for the blade, just because I feel like this is a go wide type deck.
Yeah, occasionally you're going to get Fire Shrieker on a rat that's like a, 9/9 or something and kill somebody. But I agree. I don't know if I want Fire Shrieker here. I think you're better served with that as a draw spell. If I was pulling things to put in draw spells, that would be one of the things I would pull. God Pharaoh's Gift, 7 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, but it's a 4/4 black zombie and it has haste. I don't want that, I don't think, in a deck. That's a lot for 7 mana for a thing that doesn't do anything until your next turn and doesn't do anything if you have an empty graveyard. And then even if it does do something after paying 7, it just makes you a 4/4 black zombie rat.
It doesn't even stay a rat. That's what I'm looking at right now.
That's true.
The token is a zombie instead of its other types.
Okay.
Unlike zombies created by the Eternalize ability, which would have been from the same block.
Yeah.
This is black instead of its other colors, and it's a 4/4. So it loses the rat creature type. So
then it definitely should be a draw spell or a Whip of Erebos or something else.
Yes. It should. If we're going to spend 7 mana and we want to look at something in that same CMC range, a Chroma's Memorial.
Chroma's Memorial is going to be miserable to deal with.
It's just over the budget. It's $22, $23, but here's that haste. Yeah. Here's the haste for you play this. If you have a Nykthos, you still have a bunch of mana, you cast your command, the Dreadhorde, bring all those rats back and win.
And they have a fear and flying, nothing will block them. Then.
And pro everything.
Yeah.
Black and red, haste, vigilance too. Ooh.
Yeah. I agree. If you're going to spend 7, I would spend 7 on that. I don't think this does enough. Heirloom Blade. Equipped creature gets +3/+1, and when a equipped creature dies, you may reveal cards on top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a type with it. Put that card in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I get it. You sacrifice a rat to Marrow-Gnawer, and it puts another rat into your hand. I still don't think it's good enough.
Is it a budget version of Thrumming Stone?
Yeah, I guess maybe.
That's all I can really think of.
Because Storming Stone's the obvious one you would want here.
And it's like $35.
Yeah. If it's not, I don't think Heirloom Blade is good enough as well.
I don't either. I think something more like Herald's Horn.
Yes.
It's probably better. That's a 3-mana artifact. You choose a creature type when it ETBs. Those creature spells cost 1 less to cast. Well, there's the 1 off of all your rat colonies. Yep. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's that type, you may reveal it and put it in your hand. Another draw thing.
1 in 3 chance of being a draw, basically.
Yep.
Skull Clamp.
Your rat colonies are X1s for the most part.
And it's Skull Clamp. It's almost always good.
Yes.
Soul Ring.
Good.
Then Soul Foundry. 4 mana, has Imprint. When Soul Foundry enters the battlefield, you may exile a creature card from your hand, and you spend X, create a token as a copy of the exiled card. X is the converted mana cost of that card. So once you imprint it, basically you can make a rat colony every turn for 2 mana. Because you're going to put the rat colony on it, imprint it. I'm unsure about this.
I think it is knowing that if you only want to use this on your single creature, because you only get the 1 imprint.
Yep.
I think it's good. It's overall in the long term, it's going to be cheaper than something like Mimic Vat, because Mimic Vat you always pay the 3.
And the creature goes away from Mimic Vat at the end of turn. So this does just stay out there, making your rats even bigger.
So I would like to hear how it plays, because I want to say Mimic Vat just might be better because you have the option of replacing that creature with something of your opponent's.
Yep.
That does come in handy. It happened to me last week in a game, but at the same time, if you just want to pump out rats, I get it.
Yes. Stoneforge Masterwork. It is only 1 mana. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it, and it costs 2 to equip. I don't think it's good enough. Okay, let's say you have 9 rats out. A creature gets +2/+2. Or excuse me, +9/+9. That's good for costing 1 and equipping for 2, but I don't know. There's going to be, there are going to be times that kill somebody, but there's also enough times when it just, they'll just choose to, assuming they can block, they'll just deal with the creature wearing Stoneforge Masterwork. I just don't think it does enough.
I disagree.
Okay.
Typically, this is where I think we would say, Blackblade Reforged is a card. It's really good.
Yeah.
But when your deck isn't revolving around your commander for combat, I think this is a really good alternative because your commander makes rats, plus all your rat colonies, And it's 3 mana. Like, I'm never going to feel bad casting this and letting it sit on turn 1 or casting it on turn 9 and winning the game.
Sure.
I think this is actually a very threatening card in this deck, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Sword of the Animist, gets you lands. I like it. Your rats have fear. Again, it'll get through. Again, I think this deck doesn't need all this equipment, but it is mono black. It's hard to ramp, especially with where the draw package is right now. I think it's fine for now. I think overall it's probably something can replace it down the road.
Okay.
And Vanquisher's Banner?
Banner is pretty great.
It's just another anthem for your rats, and
it's a draw.
Draws you a card.
A couple things I would suggest here. Jet Medallion.
Yeah.
It is closing on $10 now, I think.
Of course.
But it makes all your black spells cost 1 less, and the vast majority of your spells here do have a colorless mana cost. So basically, aside from your lands, your artifacts, and Defile and Scheming Symmetry and Typhoid Rats, it's going to make 2/3 of your cards in this deck cost 1 mana less to cast.
Yep.
I would 100% find a slot for that. You also probably, I'd be tempted to try to find room for Cloud Key. When it comes into play, you choose a permanent type, a card type, and spells that type cost 1 less as well. It's 3 mana. I think it's also around $10, so it's not super cheap, but being able to cast every one of those pack rats, every one of your rat colonies for 1 black mana.
And you could just say creature. You don't even say rat.
That's right.
So all your creatures are 1 less.
So then Ayara is less. I guess that's really the only non-rat you have in this deck. Ink Eyes is also a rat. Ogre Slumlord itself is not a rat. That would cost 1 less. But being able to knock, and it's not like a tap ability. It's just they cost 1 less.
Right.
So if you have drawn enough cards, that goes from you casting 3 rats to you casting 6 rats that turn. I think the cost reduction is really useful. There's already a Bantu's Monument here, but I'm very tempted to find a slot for those 2 here as well.
Yeah.
Anything else from artifacts? There isn't much in the way of mana rocks here. There is, There's
a Soul Ring.
There's a Soul Ring. That's it.
And
the cost reduction off Bantu's Monument.
And the cost, I think that's fine. I kind of compare these type of decks to Patrick Sapola's Rat Colony deck, and he runs Marin, and I don't think he runs very many mana rocks.
There's not a ton in that deck.
You want to be aggressive. You just want to go land, start churning out rats.
That's why I think the cost reducers are the way to go for your mana rocks, because they can hit multiple cards per turn.
Yeah, and honestly, people might find those more threatening anyways.
Yeah.
So let them destroy those, and you can still cast your 2 mana rats.
Sure. Last but not least, there's 30 creatures here.
So we have Araya, First of the Lockwane. That's triple. It's from Eldraine. Triple black for a legendary creature, Elf Noble. Whenever it or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. So a little bit of a life drain there. And then you can tap to sacrifice another black creature, draw a card. Ichor Rats, an infecting rat. Ink Eyes, Servant of Oni. This is 4 black for a rat ninja. It has ninjutsu for 3 black, and then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may put target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and you can regenerate it for 1 and a black. Ogre Slumlord, whenever another non-token creature dies, put a 1/1 black rat onto the battlefield. Rats you control have Death Touch.
Yeah.
Pack Rat, power and toughness equal to the number of rats you control, and then you can pay 2 and a black to discard a card and put a token onto the battlefield. That's a copy of Pack Rat. We have Pestilence Rats, power and toughness equal to the number of rats. Other rats in play, no matter who controls them, and then that's about it. And it has a *3 for power and toughness. Rancid Rats is a 2 mana rat with Skulk and Death Touch. The 19 rat colonies. Rat Catcher, 4 black for a creature Ogre Rogue. See, Rogue Tribal, look at that.
There we go.
4/4, it has fear, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library for a rat card, reveal it and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. Septic Rats, 1 black, it has Infect, and then when it attacks, if defending player is poisoned, Septic Rats gets +1/+1. We also had Throat Slitter, which is a 4 and a black for a rat ninja with ninjutsu. And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, destroy target non-black creature that player controls. And then Typhoid Rats has Death Touch.
Okay. Any big ones here that you think are missing, first of all?
I think there's at least one, if not two very important ones missing.
Okay.
And they're both from Throne of Eldraine.
Piper of the Swarm and Chittering Witch?
Yeah. Piper of the Swarm is a 2-mana human warlock, and it says rats you control have menace. So another way to get evasion on the battlefield between the fear and the death touch and everything. You can pay 1 and a black and tap to create a 1/1 black creature token. You can pay 2 black and tap to sacrifice 3 rats and gain control of target creature.
I would run that.
I would run that and never use the third ability.
Yep.
And then Chittering Witch is 3 and a black for a human warlock. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 black rat creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. So worst case, 4 mana, make 3 rats.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's 5 power for 4 mana.
Yeah.
That seems good.
Yeah, I would be very tempted to run that. That's even before we get to the 1 and a black, sack a creature, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, which is also really, really useful as a removal option.
Yeah.
We talked about removing murder. I'd be very tempted just to put this in that murder slot. It's a removal spell-ish, and it makes your rats, and it's a body.
Yeah.
So those were the 2 creatures I had down here as well that I think this deck would absolutely be better off running.
Yeah, I mean, you could go the route of adding something like Adaptive Automaton or Metallic Mimic just to pump your rats, but you got to kind of be weary about that because you take away from stuff like Skull Clamp to help the draw.
Right, yes. Yeah, those I think are 2 solid ones I would probably look for here to try to slot in as well. So other than that, by virtue of being a rat colony deck, you've limited yourself a little bit. You're just running rats. There's so much in terms of creatures that you can do, but I think at the end of the day, adding more draw is what this deck really, really needs.
It definitely does, and I think we helped him with that.
I think so. I think making those changes are really going to make a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
One card we didn't mention, and one of the things we've been doing when we do these deck techs is we like to autograph a card and send it out. The one card that's missing in the land base, I think, will be the one we might pick for this deck, and that's Swarmyard. Tap to regenerate a rat, spider, insect, or squirrel, I believe. And it's also probably not in here for budget reasons because it's like $12 or $13. So I think I'm fairly certain I've got a Swarmyard lying around.
Okay.
We can sign that and send it off. I think that would be a really good addition to this deck. We didn't mention it under lands because we're going to mention it here at the end as our giveaway, but that's the one other card I would put in here as well. I have seen, I think I've played against 4 or 5 different variants on rat colony or relentless rat decks. I know Marrow-Gnawer is the obvious choice for commander. I've never seen anyone play Marrow-Gnawer as the commander.
No, neither have I. I've seen it in rat decks, but never at the head of a rat deck.
I've seen, obviously, Patrick has the Marin deck. I've seen an Athreos Rats.
Yep.
I've seen, there's a Jund Sacrifice Goblin that was in the Commander Precons.
Shattergang Brothers?
No, but it was in that deck, though. It was one that makes whenever you sacrifice a creature, it makes a zombie token. 3/1 zombie token that's called like Graveborn or something. It's out of the original Cold Snap. It's out of Cold Snap. It was a reprint.
I don't know.
I've now forgotten. Secular.
Oh, yep. Okay, now I know.
Yep, Deathkeeper, I think. I've seen a Secular rat deck, and I've seen, I can't remember what the other one was. So they've almost all been a 2-color or 3-color deck. I've never seen the mono black Marrow-Gnawer deck. So it's fun to look at. I myself am always kind of partial looking at monocolor decks as well. I like the inherent restrictions in building them because you just can't deal with some things and you have to accept that and kind of like game around it to a degree.
Right.
So, Connor, thank you much for supporting the show and thank you very much for sharing your deck with us. We appreciate it. I think that's going to wrap it up, Max.
Works for me.
All right. We'll be back next Monday with another show. Our show was edited by Ken Peddle. You can find him on Twitter at LOAD3R. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod. That's licensed via Creative Commons. You can find myself on the Twitter birds at Dana Roach. You can find Max on Twitter at CMDRCentral_Max. And you can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. We'll be back on Monday with a new show. Until then, I'm Dana.
And I'm Max.